Lugano then a goal down after the first period. That goal coming from Chibarov after just 3.5 minutes play. The home fans hoping for something better from Lugano as we start the second. In the face-off circle. Spartak Moscow, as we said, winners the last 2 years of this competition, but prior to that, in 1988, it was Team USA. So it hasn't been a clean sweep in previous years for the East Europeans by any means at all. Indeed, Team Canada were also twice successful back in the mid-80s. It'll be very interesting indeed to see how the Russians now adapt to the new climate of professional sport and having to pay their way without the feather bedding of the old Soviet Ice Hockey Federation behind them. Well, the Moscow club side do have a sponsor. It's a Russian entrepreneur who's involved in the forestry business. He's putting some money behind this new look Moscow side. In the red here today, who lead by a goal to nil. They have a problem, however, at the start of the second, as into the sin bin goes the number 8, is it? Yes, it is. It's the centre, Maslenikov. 2 minutes then for Maslenikov as the Russian side go down to 4 outfield players, and a chance now for Lugano. They must utilise these 2 minutes to find an equaliser. It was when Lugano themselves were guilty of being caught with 1 too many men on the ice in the first period that the Russians took the lead, thanks to Chibarov's goal following the power play. Now Lugano must produce something similar. They have the man advantage. They're in possession here in the white. Long-range effort slapped away by Mikhailovsky in the Russian goal. And back it comes again. Tikhonov beneath us anxiously watches the clock. Maslenikov's offence holding as he clashed with the Swiss player, and use of an elbow as well, I thought, in there. Lucky not to get penalty for roughing. But holding is the offence. Maslenikov in the sin bin. Russians defending a slender 1-goal lead here in the second period. And high over the Moscow goal, the whistle's gone. Mikhailovsky hasn't really been tested so far in the Moscow goal, the goalminder. So much experience right through this Russian side. Away we go again. And at the moment, the spark missing from the Swiss. They're not creating any openings and really not putting the Moscow side under real pressure as they should. The whistle's gone for that. Hooking, perhaps, was it, from Bertagia beneath us. He's being called back to the referee. May get a penalty here. Sandro Bertagia. There he goes, the number 2. Is off for that offence. Hooking, indeed, is... His offence flashed up on the electronic scoreboard above the spectators here in Davos. This was why it happened. So the Muscovites bringing on the big players for a period now which sees them with the man advantage, and looking to turn their numerical superiority into a second goal. The big players are out there now. Sergei Zubov 21-year-old who's contracted to the New York Rangers for the coming season. We've got 5 players here today in Davos with a draft contract in their pockets for the coming NHL season. And now it's power play time from the Russians. And the Swiss desperately defending that goal of Olivier Anken. Centre right in front of the net, choosing to play without a helmet. It's easy to pick out. Back to the guard. Got a real chance here. Broken up by the Swiss. Living on their nerves at the moment. Man back on the ice. Penalty period over then. Bertagia rejoins the fray. But back come the Russians. Broken up by Domenichoni. It hasn't gone very far. And there it is, a second for the Russians. I thought for a second the referee was going to rule it out. Celebrations then as goal number 2 goes in. And we told you the big boys were out on the ice. And it's from Sergei Zubov, the number 3. The left defenseman snaps up a simple chance here. It came from the rebound, just a couple of yards. And in fact, it was straight in from Zubov. It didn't need the help of the sender in front of the unguarded net. 21-year-old Muscovite then, on his way to join the New York Rangers in the next NHL draft, and immediately the Lugano side come under renewed pressure. And suddenly Moscow have the bit between their teeth now too, looking instantly for a third. 2-0 in the second period. CSKA lead Lugano in the final of this year's Spengler Cup. Face off to the right of the Swiss goal. It's a critical period now for Sletvold's men. Feel they have to score quickly in this second period. They could so easily be swept aside by the Moscow club team. And half a yard quicker at the moment out on the ice. The men in red suddenly now in full flow. Forward they come once again. Leading by 2-0. Chibarov in the first period. After 3.5 minutes, Zubov in the second. A couple of moments ago. Right across in front of Anken's goal. Offered no protection at all there by the last line of defence. Lugano now living dangerously. The man who's just served the penalty period, Bertagia, and a third goes in. Protest towards the referee, led by Bertagia. He'll have to be careful, having just served that 2-minute ban for hooking. It's number 3, however, for the Soviets. Petrov, I think, is the scorer. Good play here from Oleg Petrov. There he was, taking it round from behind the net. And doing it all on his own without an assist. Third goal then coming in for CSKA Moscow. And Petrov confirmed on the score caption. And suddenly in the space of a couple of minutes, it's gone from 1 to 3. And Lugano now with their backs to the wall. Well, Bertagia didn't like it, led the Lugano protest. Hard really from here to see what he was complaining about. Seemed a perfectly valid goal against the name of the number 14, Oleg Petrov. Petrov, the right winger, then taking the ball, the puck through alone behind the net and slipping it beneath keeper Olivier Anken. And the Russians in complete control at the moment out there on the ice. But still a long way to go in this final for the Spengler Cup. Dmitry Mironov. Puck is back for icing. Face-off just beneath us. Lugano in a familiar position on the defensive, but here in possession of the puck. Off the backboards, whistle's gone. It's offside. Tikhonov must be pretty happy at this stage in the match. So the big players put the pressure on for 2 minutes, in which Lugano conceded 2 further goals. Off comes Sergei Zubov. Andrei Kovalenko, another 21-year-old on his way to join the Quebec Nordique club side in the NHL. Chance, perhaps, well, good play by Mikhailovsky once again. Smothers the puck. Shooting opportunities few and far between for the Swiss. They need to take everyone that comes their way. Tried to get it through the legs of Mikhailovsky. He's too experienced for that. Shot coming in from, I think it was the number 12, Robert Lavnia. That's what they're playing for here this year in Davos. This wonderful setting up in the Swiss mountains, up the valley from Chur. Klosters just down the road, familiar to British skiers. Some of the finest skiing in all Europe here in the Davos, Klosters, Arosa area. And Lugano, I'm afraid, have conceded another one. The big freeze really being put on the Swiss now by the Moscow side in full flow. And number 4 from, it's Chibarov, scorer from the first period at a second. Here it is. The number 29 is through unopposed. All the time in the world to draw Olivier Anken. And the goalminder left completely exposed here. Chibarov on the break. And in the second period, it's the Moscow side who now lead Lugano by 4-0. Welcome back to the ice hall here in Davos. Still in the second period. And you see here the side in red, Moscow, leading by 4-0, close to a fifth there as the puck flies just over the Lugano crossbar. And at the moment, the Swiss side finding themselves bereft of answers to contain the CSKA Moscow side, as Tikhonov has once again, perhaps with a little kidology, lulled the other club teams in competition here through the round robin. He saved his best cards to last in this final. The Russians, whatever we want to call them now, no longer the Soviets, but still a superb side in ice hockey terms. Perhaps the one nation everybody will want to beat. Chibarov has 2, Moscow have 4, and Lugano at the moment have no answer to Tikhonov's men. It's a happy Russian bench there in this second period. Face-off down beneath us, a chance perhaps for Lugano to craft something. Mikhailovsky has held everything that's come his way. The first string goalminder for the Muscovites. And that might be a little bit of high sticking there. It is. Oktyabrov is off the ice. He'll have a 2-minute penalty. Artur Oktyabrov. He's one of the more interesting characters in this Lugano side. Steve Isuria. But even going a man down, it's still Moscow, who are so quick on the break. One disappointment for the Swiss fans here, who've gone very quiet, I have to say, in the last 5 minutes or so, where they've seen the Russians craft 3 more goals, is this man now in possession, Kent Nielsen, the number 4. The left wing has been very subdued indeed, and looks a rather resigned figure at the moment, out on the far side of the rink. Now beneath us, the number 3, Anders Elderbrink, the left defence man. They must bring Nielsen more into the play. The Swede has been completely out of it here as we come to the midpoint in this second period. More pressure at last being exerted by the Lugano side, but it's always the final pass at the moment that's missing. And Nielsen, who's played 8 years in the NHL for the Calgary Flames, the Minnesota North Stars, and indeed has had his hands on the Stanley Cup when he was playing in the colours of the Edmonton Oilers. Well, he's no stranger to the big time, is he? But today, in front of the loyal Swiss fans, has been a major disappointment for Lugano's hopes of causing an upset here and taking the trophy, and they go another goal down. And that was Russian play, really characteristic of the last 20-25 years in which they've dominated this sport. They've got plenty of support here inside the ice hall in Davos. It's 5 now, and number 5 coming in from Chibarov, who has a hat-trick. 3 in this match already from Ivan Chibarov. There he is, taking the congratulations of the crowd. Ivan, did I call him? Sorry, it's Igor Chibarov. So a great second period now, as the Russians, in total command, stretch their lead. 5-0. Lugano, well, stunned really, rolled over by the red machine. They've conceded 4 in 10 minutes in this second period. And that breakout, even when the Russians were a man down after Oktyabrov had gone into the sin bin for high sticking. They continue to outthink and outmaneuver the Swiss players, who look, well, at times a yard slow, and now another chance, well, close to number 6, spurned by the Russians. Kovalenko, the 21-year-old right winger. Vladimir Malakov, another man on his way to join the New York Islanders. John Sletfall not happy at all, taking his frustration out on the match officials. But really, I think at the end of this second period, he's got to get his troops together, and that's where the blame lies. Easy to point the accusing finger at the referees. Always the Aunt Sallies of sport, aren't they? At the moment, Lugano down, but not yet buried, trailing by 5-0. Olivier Ancren will smother the puck. So he's been preferred to Didier Torsi for much of this final. Torsi started the action for the first couple of minutes in period 1 only. Olivier Ancren's not done too much wrong. You can see how the Swiss now have lost all their early fervour, as they've had to witness a mean performance from the Russian side, which has humbled Lugano. and put the dampener on this Spengler Cup final. Hoping so much, of course, the locals, for a victory from the Lugano side. They've brought a lot of travelling support with them up into the mountains from their superb lakeside setting. Now Lugano making ground. Here's Nielsen switching to this near side. Slap shot. Blocked by Mikhailovsky. Has Nielsen, I wonder, reawakened his appetite? Stung by criticism. His lacklustre display in the first period certainly had trainer John Sletvold looking to galvanise his side for this second period, but who would have thought they'd come out and concede 4 quick goals as they have? And with that, position perhaps their chance has well and truly gone here out on the ice. Well, comebacks of this sort have been seen before in the NHL, and in ice hockey terms, this fastest team sport in the world can all turn around very quickly indeed. Let's not write Lugano off just yet. Still a lot of ice hockey to be played here in this final. And as Elderbrink has seen plenty of the action, good stick control once again from the number 3, the left defensive man. Picking it up, Andy Thun. It has to go backwards. Bruno Rogge, the captain, urging his men on. That's with the number 6, Patrick Sutter. Andre Rötteli. There's a different dimension about the Russians' play when they get into the final third of the rink, no doubt about it, in front of Olivier Anken's goal. Incisive, quick thinking, imaginative, and that's why they lead here in the second period by 5-0. Sergei Zubov going off, and Vostrikov has a penalty for holding. So 2-minute penalty puts the Muscovite side down to 4 outfield players, and another renewed opportunity for Lugano to make the advantage count. This time perhaps at last they can get on the score sheet as we come towards the end of the second period here. Muddled play once again. Now they rebuild and launch another attack over on the far side. In goes Nielsen. Way back. And the Russians have it again. Steal the puck. So quick on the break. Just heard that one ping against the framework of the goal as the puck came in. Something approaching 70 miles an hour. Great defensive play once again from Sergei Zubov. Six feet tall, 187 pounds, born in Moscow. Still only 21. No wonder the New York Rangers have put him into their draft for the new NHL season. Now the goal's off its moorings, the whistle's gone, and Mikhailovsky's down. But Lugano denied once again, and that was great defensive cover from Sergei Zubov, the number 2, getting back there to deny the Swiss as they broke up the right-hand side of the ice. Look at that, he's 2 yards behind the pace, just gets in a despairing dive as Mikhailovsky goes down. But midway through the second period here, it's the Russians who lead by 5-0. Welcome back. There's an injury to the Russian goalminder, who continues to receive treatment down there on the ice. We hope nothing too serious. Maxim Mikhailovsky who's been a tower of strength at one end for his side in the first couple of periods, while at the other it's Igor Chibarov with a hat-trick. That's given his side the advantage. They lead by 5-0 as a shaken. Mikhailovsky resumes the goal-minding position, dons the protective gear, and is, we hope, fit to continue in this final. Zubov, concerned, asking questions of the goalminder. This is his third and final season with the side from the capital of the new Russian Federation. That's Yevgeny Davidov we're looking at there, 24 years old, from Chelyabinsk. Will be playing for the Winnipeg Jets if they exercise their option on the draft choice to take him into the NHL next season. So Lugano in the wide, in possession, with a man advantage. Still they can't find a way through. The ball deflects, the puck deflects off the skates of the goalminder. The referee gets in between Eberle, the 24, and the number 2 is Maslyenikov, who's already been in the sin bin for a holding offence at the start of this period. And there's the man from Japan, Tsuchirara. Well, dazed or not, Mikhailovsky got enough on that shot to divert the puck just over the framework of the goal. Back it came from Freddy Lutti, and then the whistle, and Jörg Eberle is into the sin bin for slashing. Kravchuk joins him for a cross-check. That's the Russian captain. So both sides down a man as the captain Kravchuk gives his version of events, but he won't mind too much with that score. Illuminated above the players here on the electronic scoreboard, he knows that Moscow are looking comfortable here at 5-0. Lugano then looking to find some consolation and perhaps prevent total humiliation. Can they, I wonder, at last in this second period find a way through and get on the score sheet? Puck just away from Nilsson, when in a good position there really. Lack of control from the Swede. They're almost toying with the Russians now, but still they can't find a way through. And now it's Sajura who's in some trouble. Well, despite all that padding and the helmet and protective gear, Sajura from Japan is going to require some attention. That was Dmitry Motkov there involved, and in fact is going to be penalised for that, slashing with the stick. You saw that across the back of the ankles of the Lugano man, and that was quite unnecessary. Sitting pretty at 5-0, the crowd unhappy with that. A little bit of roughhouse tactics there from the Russians. Well, they're cruising it really in this final, and that's a sad sight to see at any sporting level. Sugiura is escorted off the ice, and Dmitry Motkov, the number 21, is off for a penalty period. Let's hope that Sugiura is not too severely injured. Well, we had a better view of that earlier on from our camera position behind Mikhailovsky's goal, and that was brutal. And goes some ice. Bruised ribs by the look of it. Unnecessary Dmitry Motkov souring this final, which has been played in a fairly good spirit up to now. We haven't seen any mass brawls, as the Russians have really let their stick do the talking for them on that occasion. Well, Motkov's stick certainly wasn't making contact with the puck, and quite rightly penalised for the misconduct. Potential flashpoint there, but we continue with the action. Lugano on the break. Shot comes in, and at last they find a way through. The puck eludes Maxim Mikhailovsky. He's beaten at last. 5-1, no more than a consolation, and it comes from Byakin. At last the Swiss supporters have something to cheer. Ilya Byakin, the number 7. Well, he's normally down on the team sheets as a left winger, but there he was switching to the right, and a low shot that just eludes goalminder Mikhailovsky. May still be feeling the effects of that tumble he took a few moments ago. There's one man who certainly is. Sugiura continues to receive attention to what must be a very painful back, or perhaps it's ribs. No, even the bench doesn't know. So the player himself unsure of just where in fact the injuries occurred. Maybe a dislocation there. Got something off, he said. You heard that quite clearly from our camera position. Confirmation of the consolation goal for the Lugano side from Byakin. Hard as nails, Viktor Tikhonov, the Moscow coach. And as things have just got out of hand in the last few moments, it began really with Dmitry Motkov slashing there on the Lugano man, which caused, as we saw, Sugiura to leave the ice for continued attention to what may be a serious injury. Let's hope not. It's given Lugano the opportunity to get back in the match with a goal at 5-1, and now Vladimir Malakov is off for a misconduct penalty, and he's going to have to face 10 minutes in the sin bin. A 10-minute penalty then against the Muscovite, the number 7, Vladimir Malakov, has a 10-minute misconduct penalty. This perhaps the best chance for Lugano now, if they can find a couple of quick goals to reduce the arrears. They'll be keen to get on with things at the end of the second period, their best opportunity, as the Russians have lost some discipline. And the Swiss have refound their voice. Play back from behind the boards by Ebele. Now back on the ice. Snap shot from Anders Elderbrink, left defenceman. Down the boards it goes. As the Russians regather, draw a deep breath, and Lugano come back at them in another attacking wave again. Back to the point man, Elderbrink. We'll try one from there. The crowd roars, but certainly it was Mikhailovsky's all the way as he smothers the puck. Refuses to be intimidated. Well, let's hope it's nothing more serious than a strain, perhaps. So Giuro was just winded there as he felt the full force of Motkov's slashing attack hit the ice with some force a few moments ago. Meanwhile, play continues. The Russian side down a man, Malakov, in the sin bin for misconduct. Still 8.5 minutes left on that penalty. Lugano trailing by 5-1. But given a lift thanks to Biakin's shot that went home 2 minutes ago. Now they're playing with more verve and vigour. So Tikhonov wanting to reshape the pack once again, shuffling the troops. Kovalenko, Mazlenikov, Davidov, Sergei Zubov, Captain Kravchuk. Once again at critical points in this final, that wily old fox Tikhonov putting out his best players when he deems it most appropriate. This could be a crucial session now for the Moscow side. They lead here, don't forget, by 5-1, coming under pressure perhaps for the first time in this match. And you see now how the Swiss are suddenly hungry for the puck. Coming down to the final 10 seconds then of the second period, a period that began with Moscow leading by the solitary goal. Well, 5 more we've seen go home in this second spell, and it now means Moscow will go into the third period leading Lugano by 5-1. There's the hooter at the end of the second. We'll be back after this short break for the third and final period from Davos.